Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today. The title of today's webinar is Pathlock plus Q Software, the Future of Application Security and Compliance. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but first I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items. Mike, if you could go to the next slide. If you have any audio issues during this webinar, click on Preferences and then Audio. From there, you can check to see if you are using the appropriate audio device. You can also click on the play sound to check if you can hear the sound coming from your speakers. This presentation should take approximately 30 to 60 minutes. There will be a Q&A session following the presentation, so please type any questions into the Q&A box for our speakers to answer at the end of the event. To prevent background noise, everyone is on mute. And with that, I'll turn the time over to Mike and Preston.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. Good introduction. I suspect, well, I hope that I don't need to introduce myself to any of the attendees. Our objective today really is to explain to the Q Software customer base what's been going on, what our objectives are right now as a company, what has happened with our merger with Pathlock, and particularly what it means to you, our customer base. But you'll know who I am. But Preston, some people might not know who you are, so why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Mike. So my name is Preston Lutwich, and for the past 20 years or so, prior to coming to work with Mike, I worked as a JD Edwards functional consultant, implementing and designing software security for all the different applications in JD Edwards, and I currently sit in the technical manager role where I kind of liaise with the client and talk about architecture, how things get built, and how to best design security so that you sort of meet all of the compliancy requirements that you have. So thanks everybody for coming.
Thank you, Preston. Wise words as always. So let me just give you a bit of background, start off with about how this has all come about. What we're really creating in here in Pathlock is what we are calling the leader in ERP GRC. We're trying to combine a number of companies to provide a total solution right across the marketplace. And this is across verticals as well as across deliverables. So by which I mean the majority of the companies on this slide are actually have an SAP background. There's ourselves with an Oracle background, JD Edwards and EBS particularly, but there's also Gray Heller, which was a specialist for data security in PeopleSoft. So what we did in April of this year is bring all these companies together. That company now is called Pathlock. We're aiming to provide cross-platform GRC tools in particular, but building on the experience and the tools that the other providers, the other companies have. So what this means is that in the Oracle market, we will be continuing, the group will be continuing the use and the development of the Oracle tool set, and we'll be adding to that over a period of time. So we'll talk about that a bit later. But the main issue in terms of providing extra functionality is the cross-platform issue. We've looked for 4 or 5 years in Q Software to provide a cross-platform capability. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean providing controls across the whole of your estate, i.e. to be able to provide user provisioning from one solution to not just Q Software to your JD Edwards and EBS base, but customers, but also to your SAP and subsidiaries, or your Ariba, or whatever your other systems are. And particularly the most difficult thing is to provide segregation of duties. If you've got a purchasing system outside of EBS or JD Edwards, you'll need to control SOD across those platforms. So, what we have with Pathlock is the ability to deliver that now. So I'll dwell on that a little bit later. You will, of course, note that bringing these 7 companies together over a period of what has effectively been less than a year is an interesting organizational issue. You can ask me those questions offline. But the good news for us is that There's nobody with competing products in the Oracle market in that slide, so things really have continued for us as they were before. Where we're going is that we are going to be providing functionality across the whole platform of GRC, not just application security and user access, but looking at data and transactions. All right. We have some of this functionality now for EBS. We have transaction monitoring and data masking now available for EBS, and we're looking at those areas for JD Edwards. Be very interested in any input you've got on that, and also issues like single sign-on, etc. there. Just a little bit of a scale issue. We now, as a group, now have over 1,000 customers based around the world. We have over 500 employees, which if you look at it in Q Software, we had 30 employees. You'll understand there's been quite a lot of change for us here. You'll recognize some of the customer names, but some of them you obviously won't, but I'm not going to dwell on that. But I think the main thing I want to stress to our customers is twofold. One is that what we have today will continue in the Oracle world, but you're not just using Oracle as your platform. You have other platforms. So our vision is certainly during 2022 to be able to provide a whole level of degree of functionality, particularly to control all of your main issues with regards to security, compliance, audit, right across the whole of your estate, a complete 360 degree. And that is not just about connecting the data together, it's to provide a platform, a web-based platform for you to be able to view your security and compliance issues from one glass, one window, one web application. Some of you will be aware we have some of that in our Q Cloud platform today, but that is being extended, and we will have before the end of this year a new platform, a new web-based application that you'll be able to use to see your data across all of your estate. But moving slightly on from that, and Stephanie said, if you've got any questions, just key them in. The session is being recorded, so you'll have access to that afterwards. We'll send you a link to that if you want it, and I'm happy to send out the slides. But I just wanted to emphasize that the existing Q Software tools for JD Edwards and for EBS will continue unaffected. All right, those are the major tools for JD Edwards: Audit Manager for your segregation of duties, and Security Manager Pro for role-based access control. I think most of our users in JD Edwards use those tools. If you're not aware of the others, User Admin Manager is user provisioning. Bearing in mind what we're trying to do with these tools is to increase efficiency. Certainly the tools on the left-hand side should pay for themselves in less than 2 years. Most of them, particularly periodic review, which is the user certification process you have to go through, that should pay for itself in less than a year. All right. It's worth saying continuous monitoring is an area that we're looking at to improve considerably, to increase transactional monitoring. We'll be looking at that in 2023. So here is our JD Edwards plan for 2023. All right. I'll talk about EBS in a moment, but JD Edwards' plan really is majorly about navigation and usability, process improvements to enable our users to be able to link the what are really technical tools in Audit Manager and Periodic Review into a means to be able to see them easier, so that a user who wants to reject an access in periodic review, the certification process, can easily communicate that, can pass that back to the center of the company to enable that change to happen and to be viewed. To put greater focus on audit actionability, by which I mean for the auditors, not just providing them with the intelligence, i.e. the violation summary and the violation detail, but give them the means to action what they need to do coming out of that. This has been our major focus right now, and this is what we're going to be providing in 2023. That's really driven by end user feedback. A couple of other areas just in passing. We have a big usability and an access issue going on with our User Access Manager. We introduced last 12 months, the means to connect from there to your service desk, etc. What we need to do now is make it much easier for the users, particularly for approvers who are outside of JD Edwards, to be able to approve the access. Then in our Security Management Pro, we're looking at the change control process, making that a lot easier, built-in change control, etc. As I said just now, fraud detector, fraud management is a big issue, and we need to find a different way of doing that. So we're reviewing our options on that. So those are the enhancements. This isn't a session to launch the new products, the new enhancements. We do that every time a release is due. But the main thing is to make sure that we are pushing forward with that. There's a question here from Jared. What impact does this have on current Q software on-prem and cloud support? No change at all, Jared. I'll dwell on that a little bit later on. All of your support contracts continue, and I'll re-emphasize the addresses and the people for that later on. So no change whatsoever, and we don't expect that to change for the next 10 years. All right. Then a quick word about EBS. We have a new product for our EBS customers called Pathlock, and this is available now. There are about 75 users, companies using this worldwide. About half of them are in Europe. What this is enabling us to give to our EBS base is a new set of functionality to fit with the requirements. It's the same 4 key areas: audit, security and access management, user lifecycle, and segregation of duties. But this is a new product set. It's got a lovely new front end on it, and we'll be delighted to show that to you. Once more, we're anticipating both of these product sets to keep on going for the whole life of these on-prem systems, JD Edwards and EBS. I think the last I heard was they were going to be supported by Oracle until 2033, so we will do the same. Just moving on then, I just wanted to itemize the one area that we are developing highly, and we're pleased to say that this was something that was started 3-4 years ago in Q Software, and it's been picked up by the group, and they are expanding this. And this is based on our Q Cloud system, and what we're now calling it is advisory services. Some of you will have used the Q Cloud to look at this and assess the security. And really, what this is about is to try and help you with the things that worry you. If you're looking at your JD Edwards or EBS security and saying, I don't know what my problems are. Is it possible for somebody to hack into this system? Where are my shortfalls? I've got audit on my back. How do I sort out my internal controls to satisfy them? Or even if it's just as simple as, well, how do I plan the changes? All right. I had a call with a very large customer yesterday, and their issue was, well, how do we actually get to where we need to be? You've told us where we need to get, where we need to be. Or how do we get there? How do we plan it out? And that is obviously something we can help with. But the core here is that using our Q Cloud and what the advisory practice is doing currently is to extend this beyond JD Edwards and EBS. And we'll have an SAP version available next month, is to enable our clients to look at this and understand what is going on with their system and where we go. But I thought I'd ask Preston, because he gets a bit bored if he's sat there and doing nothing, to talk about this, because Preston gets involved in delivery. So Preston, give us a background to this, will you please?
Sure. Thanks, Mike, as always. So the concept behind the assessment actually grew from the simplicity of being able to extract the SOD matrix data out of a system and start to look at a couple of key points on what we want to do with that. One is knowing where you stand lets you know where you need to go and how long it's going to take you to get there. It gives you the planning abilities. It gives you opportunity to make those decisions, to ask for the money it takes to do it if it's necessary, or the resources, internal or external, as that comes. So part of that process is to decide, well, am I actually going to get into a redesign where I'm going to actually change how things are built, the roles, the security, the level of access that I'm granting to people? Am I actually more going to focus on remediation? I'm going to check on how the data is actually being utilized, and I'm going to actually change how those particular people utilize that data and grant access to certain sensitive or critical data sets based on those roles that are necessary. And lastly, the actually ability to review consistently the controls that I've put in place and understand that those controls continue to keep my environment safe and ultimately environments safe as we kind of progress through tying all of these multiple applications together. Okay, Mike? So the process itself is 7 steps. The first 4, typically, when I talk to people, they're the ones that have already happened by the time I get involved. But the installation, I start off with a quick install and a half an hour run of extraction of data. The audit itself, steps 2 and 3, are run by our certified auditors who actually take the raw data and start to put it together, not just from the mechanics of running an audit, but the actual interpretation of the things that are not one-to-one relationships, looking at holes in both process, in roles, in applications, looking at applications that can be combined together that are not part of the standard security audit. In JD Edwards, batch control, those kinds of things, payee control, where those products are not controlled by security, but they actually add layers of security. Those kinds of evaluation are done by our assessment teams. Step 4, we present that back to the client. We talk about what those data points look like, where there are criticalities that need to be addressed. I won't say low-hanging fruit because I hate that, but the easy wins, the things that you can get done quickly. And then we provide that package back to you so that you can actually look at the details. Once you've had a chance to look at all of that and talk about within your own team how that works, then we come back and say, hey, have we got any other questions you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about the structure of that remediation plan, what we're advising and what we're giving to you as a solution? So that whole process takes you through the sort of cycle of it, and that gives you the output, what we can go through here real quickly, Mike. What we try to provide in the overview piece is, one, the idea of how does your model and your security modeling look? Do you have access wide open to the critical level for everyone? Do you have a high number of security records that get evaluated, which causes problems with performance or causes problems with conflict between lines of code that give you access but then take it away again? How many roles have you got in your system? What kinds of roles are built? Data roles, business access roles, application roles? How many roles per user? How many times does the system have to check those roles and the order of those roles to figure out whether it's supposed to grant or take away access to your system? And then also looking at the IT user, the ones that we all know and love, where everyone has access to everything. And the trend is to take that away and help strategizing how we are going to pull back the access to everything in the system and still support the user community is sort of part of what we do. And then when we look at the user side of things, the actual user data itself, do the users have appropriate nomenclature that we can identify who that user is? Are they accurately described in the system? Do they have the right categorization of users? And then from a profile side, looking for things that key us into that this person has multiple accounts in your system. bsmith1, bsmith2, why do those exist? What do they actually have access to? Just because you have 2 user IDs doesn't mean you can't do 2 things that aren't going to cause you problem logging off and logging back in. And then looking to make sure that you've got proper termination processes in place. You don't have any hanging records on the system that are active. And then taking all of that and coming back and giving access to show in the general trend, where do you have your vulnerabilities? Who has access to what the majority of accesses are granted and what programs they are and where they can possibly inflict damage into your actual system as it goes. Security administration, general accounting, journal entry, those kinds of violations and where they fall in our chart gives you kind of the overview. All of the detail is provided in that evidence package where you can go back and cut and slice and dice the data to get to what you want to focus on. But knowing that here gives you that starting point on how to delve into the details. And then we talk about sort of our out-of-the-box violations. We provide some of those as part of the process of giving you that overview. Some of them we will add custom if you have specific business processes. Mike likes to say security is a very personal thing. It is a very personal thing based on your business. If you make widgets, then that is a thing that you want to take control of. You want to talk about your bill of materials and you want to talk about those things, we will add that into our audit for you. And then these rules basically give you the idea of who's violating those rules, how many of those are based on business users, and where's the highlight of the highest range of issues so that you can attack those first. Where are we going to get the biggest bang for the buck if we go after those roles? And knowing what rules you break allows you to focus on the left or the right side of that rule and take the least amount of effort to sever that relationship so you're not causing that break. Mike?
Thank you, Preston. That was concise. That was good. Thank you. Well, one other thing I wanted to talk about, I mentioned it earlier on, but I think it's very critical going forward, is that most of you will not have just one Oracle application within your environment. Right? You will have other applications. You might have other ERP systems, as they would call it. I was talking to a user last week who had bought a company, and they had SAP in the manufacturing. They were looking to manage that alongside their JD Edwards core system. You might have EBS in the center. You might have looked at best of breed for purchasing, and perhaps you bought Ariba for purchasing. And you need to look at your core controls over these applications. You know, it's a larger organization, multinational, might have 30 core applications. The largest I've seen, I think Unilever claimed to have over 200 core applications. How do you manage all of these? All right, what I'm talking about is controls. All right, how do you manage segregation of duties across your purchasing and your core financials? You need to be able to do that because a number of people in your organization will have logins to both. You need to look at fraud control across those two applications. You need a single user lifecycle management, i.e. single means for a user to request access to both of those systems, all 10 of those systems, all 6 of those systems in this instance. User certifications. User certification is a process which you can gain enormous amount from. And normally speaking, we would say that you'll gain control and payback of that in less than a year, and then looking at your controls. So what we are aiming to do progressively, this isn't all here today, but certainly by the end of 2022, we will be aiming to provide you with a solution across your core applications. But happy to talk about it today, and we can start planning it with you. And as I say, we should be in a position to deliver it towards the end of the year. Just a little bit of background to the company. We now have people around the world, and I am personally dealing with people. I've had calls to India, Europe, and Latin America today. I've got a call later on with Australia. You know, we have people around the world, and we are now supporting people on a 24-hour coverage around the world. I'll talk about the support number and our customer success team in a second. But the one thing before we get towards the end of this that I wanted to stress to you, that what you should be doing with all of these systems is looking for where you can get your quick wins, and we can help you with that. More and more times with our clients, we're helping them to produce an internal justification, and certainly there are some areas where you can get a much greater saving than others. All right, you need to look for efficiencies. All right? And the two core areas where you can normally gain great efficiencies are the access reviews, user certification. As I said, that is a process that if you're running it 4 times a year, you can easily justify the implementation of the tool, which will take you about a month maximum, and you can justify it within a year. Audit reporting depends on how you do it at the moment, depends on how critical it is in your business, etc., but there are huge savings there. What I'm saying is you should be implementing these controls, all right? That's what they are, for the next 10 years. That is the life of your Oracle ERP system. We're talking about 2033. You know, he'll probably undoubtedly extend beyond that. And your JD Edwards Q software and EBS tools will extend that life. They'll work with you till then. You should be putting them in now so that they last for 10 years and they gain you efficiencies in the business. That's the key point. So coming towards the end, I wanted to stress that there are a number of people who haven't changed. There are two main salespeople that most of you will be aware of, one if not both of them. There's Verinda's happy smiling face and Steve's, I think I would call it a grin, you know. Most of you will be aware of those two people. They are still there satisfying your needs. Verinda covers all sales and account management issues in North America. Steve, everything in Europe, all right. So they're still there. They now have Pathlock email addresses, but the Q Software ones will divert to them. In addition, if you're not aware, Graham Seaholm in the UK, that is definitely a smirk from Graham, is our support manager. He is still there. He's been with me for 15 years, thick and thin through all his accidents, but he's still there and happy to help you. We are still working off the Q Software support, so nothing has changed. All right. He hasn't, probably the only thing that has changed, he has a number of people now behind him to support him, but across all the time zones, so that's good. All right. I did want to introduce to you, however, the gentleman on the right. Not a great picture, Matt. I think we need to find a better one than that. I was going to do a bit of photoshopping for you, but I didn't quite get around to it last night. Matt is somebody that's very important to us going forward, and hopefully to you. You will hear from Matt. He is what is termed customer success. He is motivated, i.e. paid, to talk to all of our customers, and the objective certainly in the next 6 months that everybody in our customer base will hear from Matt and will talk to Matt, and his job is to make sure you're happy. Customer success. All right. Happiness means things like, well, do you need any training? Are you happy with what you got? Have you got any ideas for the new ideas for the product, etc., etc. All right. So Matt is your number one day-to-day contact alongside Verinda and Steve. There is his email address. You'll be hearing from him, believe me. I did want to mention the two other people that are still around. Heather Ward, most of you be aware she's my wife, is now running project management for the group. She is still there, providing management capabilities in the Oracle sphere as well. And Kerry, some of you will have come across the assessment that Preston has taken you through was Carrie's idea. She has developed that service. She is now very focused not just on delivering it for our Oracle customers, but developing it for the SAP base as well. But Carrie is, as those of you who have met her know, very experienced in coming at it from the audit perspective. She did work for one of our customers, running internal security and audit, and unfortunately for that customer, we pinched her 6-7 years ago, and she's done a great job in building up that side. She's still available, she's still with us, but the ladies wouldn't be the ones you go to first of all. It's one of the four above, plus of course Preston, that's he and myself. If you need anything from an overall sense, I'd love to hear from you. If you're not remembering my email address, it's on the last slide as we come to it in a moment. So a conclusion. I wanted this to last half an hour, and we're just about on it. What is the future? I think the future primarily is about no change, all right, plus change. All right? There's no change in the support of our products, and the development of our products is moving on apace. We've got more resources, not less resources. But I think I needed to stress to you that things are changing, not just in Pathlock as we integrate and move forward, but also in the world at large. All right? And I ran a session at the JD Edwards user group, Ascend, where no, it wasn't Ascend, it was Blueprint, sorry. Ascend was the EBS one. I did a session of that, and what I was talking about was the futures. Right? What is happening? All right? And I think it's very important if you're involved in security for your ERP system, that you understand what is happening in the marketplace and you plan for it. And the point overall, of course, is to help you with that, that we are there to help you with that planning. I think just to make the points rapidly, number one, compliance, what we know from experience is that around about 60% of you will be subject to compliance today. SOX in particular, FDA, there are similar legislation in the rest of the world. If you're joining us from UK, you'll be aware that the UK is probably the only modern economy that doesn't have similar legislation. But the issue will be that if the auditor isn't coming to you for these issues today, they will be in the future. That is because audit are under more pressure to do their job properly, and their job is to look at your controls. It's about, on the right-hand side, implementing internal controls. It's internal controls that not just satisfy your auditors, all right, but enable you to control fraud, control segregation of duties, control users. All these things the auditor is asking for are internal controls. And what it is about, in my mind, is automation, automation, automation. That is what is going to save you money. Implement that control so you need the least amount of human hands involved in the process. All right? And what we are aiming to do as regulations increase, they're not going to decrease, that we will be able, certainly later on in the year, to provide you this form of control management right across your enterprise, across all of your systems. All right? Then data privacy. I think looking down the list, most of you are in North America who have managed to avoid GDPR and what it implies and means. What I hate to break to you is that there are 24 states in the 50 that are implementing data privacy at the moment. So that is only going to expand and get more complicated. So you need help with your data privacy controls, and you need to automate that help. But the core to all of it is to produce efficient gains. Get the CFO on your side, and that's why I say to every CIO, every IT director I ever meet, just pick on things like user certification, periodic review, as some people call it. All right? That's a means whereby you can automate and say to the CFO, look, I've saved you money. All right, now let's move on to the next thing, which might not save you money so rapidly. But above all else, the fraud is continuing to grow. We know from the figures that you've got a 1 in 2 chance of somebody committing fraud on your system in the next 2 years. Yes, a 50% chance. All right, so if you're responsible for security, you really ought to think about this and look at it and get controls in place. It's about implementing controls. It's not about just giving somebody tools to their CNC or to their systems admin. It's about automating these things, all right? But above all else, I think what we promote to our clients is to plan, all right? Plan ahead, and that's where the assessment process comes in. I advise you to look at it. If you haven't looked at it before, happy to get Preston on a call and you can go through it. So I think that's about all I was going to say. Stephanie, have we got any questions?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Preston, for your presentations. If you have any questions, please add them now into the question box. Okay, our first question is, what impact does this have on current QSoft on prem and cloud support?
I think I answered that one, but I will answer it again in a bit more detail. The bottom line is that the current products are going to be supported for the life of the ERP system. So that is in current plans 11 years, because I think both JD Edwards and EBS are supported through to 2033. Secondly, more importantly, we are developing. All right, we have more development staff than we had before, that you'll see the results of that. We're aiming to get a next release out. We've just done a release. We're going to release out early in 2023. So that's good. And what on top of that, I think is important to bear in mind, that the cloud platform is going to be materially and completely enhanced. All right. What we're going to be providing to our Q Cloud customers is the means to be able to access multiple platforms, right? So not only running audits on JD Edwards and EBS, assessments on JD Edwards and EBS, but also in the short term SAP. So yeah, good news, right, for all of you. I don't see any downsides for our customer base. What else, Stephanie?
Okay, the next question is, are the Q software tools going to be supported going forward?
I think I just answered that one. That's good.
Okay. How do I look into the assessment process?
That's a good question. Thank you. Delighted, just let us know, either through Matt or myself or Preston, or if you're in the US, Brenda or Steve in Europe. The answer is let us know you're interested, and Preston will walk you through a demonstration, show you how it works and what the output looks like, etc. And then we can discuss whether you're a candidate for it. The assessment normally have a commercial arrangement, all right? What we're normally charging for a full assessment for a reasonably sized customer is $7,000, $8,000, around about there. If you went to Deloitte and asked them to do this for you, they would charge between $25,000 and $50,000. So, and I'll give you a clue, our results are considerably more useful than theirs. But that's the issue. There's one here from Mark Laxton. Mark, does Q Software Support Site still exist? Yes, it does. And we are moving that over to Pathlock, and we'll let you know when that is complete. One of the minor issues that has no concern to you, Mark, or any of our customers, but is driving me crazy, is how you combine 7 different domain names onto one. Yeah, I'll tell you over a beer how difficult that is. Alex, yes, the secure support portal is still there, but it will be moving. All right. Anything else? Have we got any others, Stephanie?
I think that's it. So thank you, Mike and Preston, and thank you everyone for attending. We have a few announcements. So we have a few webinars coming up. The next webinar will be proper user termination process. And this was a webinar that was rescheduled, and it will be on Thursday, July 27th at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And then we have another webinar coming up called The Future of Access Governance for SAP, Lessons Learned from SAP GRC 2022. This will be a follow-up panel from the SAP Insider Conference that is happening this week. And that will be on Thursday, July 28th at 9 a.m. Central Daylight Time. And with that, I just wanted to say thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it, and we hope to see you at upcoming events.